Okay. Hi, everybody. We're on Daf He of Masechet Eruvin, and the theme of today is if you can't go over it, go under it. As we'll see. So we're going to have three topics. One is if when we have an alleyway, if the mavoi is too high and we need to lower it, one of the ways of lowering it is to build up the floor instead, right? So how do you do that? How much do you have to build up the floor? Second topic is if mavoi, if that is too low, and to make it bigger, instead of raising it, you dig under, make the floor lower. That's the second topic. And the third topic is if a mavoi has a wall, or a korah rather, that's so big that it's so big that it doesn't look like a pole anymore, but looks like a wall, then what do you do with that? We'll see. Okay, that's the three topics. All right, so we start from the beginning. Let's see if we can get a picture here. Right, so we have this. It's very tall, and the whole point of this is that this is a mavoi. This is a common shared alleyway, and this is a Reshut Rabim in front of it. And so the midrabanan, rabbis say you can't carry here because then you might come to carry out Reshut Rabim unless you have a sign. Well, we'll see. There's two ways to figure this. Is it a sign that will, as a reminder, or is this some kind of a symbolic wall that you put this beam here, and that'll be a symbolic wall. Okay, either way, it can't be more than 20 amot high, because then you're not going to notice it. So what do you have to do? You have to bring it down. Kama mema'ayet. How much do you have to bring it down? What do you mean? What kind of question is that? Kama desarichle. Why ask me how much you have to bring it down? You have to bring it down enough that I'll be able to be under 20. If it's 21, bring it down 1. If it's 22, bring it down 2. So what kind of question is that? Okay, Ella, we're asking actually something else. Rochbo bekama. Rochbo bekama. So rather, what we're asking is if we want to raise the platform. There you go. If you want to raise the floor, instead of bringing the top down, raise the floor. How much width do I have to raise the floor? In other words, like this here, right? If let's say the top can be thin, just 1 tefach. But how about the floor, right? So does this floor, can it be 1 tefach, or do I have to raise a bigger platform into the width of the mavoi? So we have two opinions. Rav Yosef Amar tefach, 1 tefach, just like on top is 1 tefach, on the bottom 1 tefach. Abaye Amar arba'ah. No, you need a whole platform of 4 tefachim. Right about 1 foot is going to be the size of that entire platform. Okay, so that's the machloket here, and we're going to offer 4 different reasonings, 4 different interpretations of this machloket between Rav Yosef and Abaye. Lema behakami palge, demar amar tefach kasabar mutar lishtamesh tachat hakorah. So maybe this is what they're arguing about. The one, Rav Yosef, who says all you need is a tefach, he thinks that you're allowed to carry exactly under the beam. Let's say you're precisely under the beam. He says you can carry there. And so therefore, since you can carry there, I'm going to be right there. I'll notice the floor has a little one tefach beam sticking up from it, and that will be enough of a reminder. The one who says 4, like this picture, right, says I'm not allowed to carry under here, right? So kind of we imagine the wall is starting from this edge of it. And since I'm not allowed to be in this area and carry in this area, I need a bigger thing so that when I'm further away, I'll notice this is a big platform sticking up, and that way that will help me to notice this thing even though it's more than 20. So I need a bigger platform. That's the first option to understand the machloket. Okay, good. So is that it? No, not necessarily. It could be everybody agrees that you are allowed to carry directly under the beam. The border starts at the outer edge of the beam. And what they're arguing it about is, what is it? What does it? Is it a heked? Is it a sign? If it's simply a sign, then it's enough that the bottom be 1 one tefach, right? I'll notice it, and that's enough of a sign. If it's a legal fiction, an imaginary wall, well, see, think about it. If it's an imaginary wall, imagine the wall is coming down, it's one tefach wide, and it's coming down in the bottom, and the bottom beam is also one tefach wide. Well, then it's just a very high wall, a wall that's more than 20 tefachim. So that's no good. It didn't help anything. In order for it to be a wall, it has to be a wall of an area, of a surface area. So of a certain amount of flooring. So the minimum amount of flooring to have an enclosure that's called a space so that you can have a wall is 4 tefachim. And so therefore, that the second opinion would require 4 tefachim. Okay, so that's the second interpretation. And now, a third one, everybody agrees it's actually as a marker, it's a sign. And the question is, does the top have to match the bottom? And so Rav Yosef says that the marker below is 1 tefach, matches the marker above. It's the same. Whereas Abaye says, no, we do not have that principle, and the lower one does not have to match, it has to actually be bigger. That's the third opinion. And the fourth interpretation, third interpretation, everyone agrees that really the bottom has to be the same as the top. And it could be 1 tefach. But we have a different concern altogether, a gezerah. Since the one on the bottom, everybody's going to be walking on top of it, right? Eventually, they're going to wear it down, and it's going to end up becoming less than a tefach, and that won't be good. But the one on top, nobody touches it, so it's okay. So therefore, Abaye says we should make a gezerah, and we say the one on the bottom has to be bigger. How much bigger? Well, the next level up. What's the next, measurement? Normal measurement up is 4 tefachim, and so as a gezerah. Rav Yosef says, however, is not concerned. You make it out of something sturdy, and then you don't have to worry about it. Okay, good. So that's the end of the issue number 1. Now, issue number 2 is if it's too low. So if the beam is too low, right, the minimum is 10 tefachim. 10 tefachim is always the minimum amount for a mechisa. For any separation, fence, border, for lots of different things in halacha. So this would imply that it has something to do with being a border. I mean, if it's just a sign, whatever, if you're going to trip on it, you'll notice it's there, and it'll be a good sign. Okay, so if the space between the floor and the beam is less than 10 tefachim, that's 2.5 feet, then you have to raise it. So, or you have to dig under. Okay, so kama chokek, how much do I have to dig the floor to make it lower? Kama chokek, kama tesarich. Hold on, what kind of question is that? Oh, however much you need. If there's only 8 tefachim, so dig 2 more, then you'll have, right? So what's the kind of question? Ella mishcho bechama. Rather, what we're asking is the depth into the mavoy, as in this picture, right? This one is too low. So is it enough to just make one little furrow? No, I have to dig into it something, right? Because has to be a mavoy in the first place in order that this whole thing will work. So how much is it? Same two Amoraim, but they have different opinions now. Abaye amar be'arba amot. Arba'a is different. Arba'a is zachad, that refers to arba'a tefachim. So in other words, only 4 tefachim, just about a foot. Abaye says arba, that's nekeva, because ama is nekeva. Arba'a amot, 4 amot, about 6 feet. Okay, so again, Rav Yosef still says the lesser, and Abaye has the greater amount, but they are all a step up in this case. Because you need to make a mavoy in the first place, and just making that one strip lower is not going to really do anything. Okay, so what is their machloket? This machloket, we're going to try to correlate it with another opinion. Perhaps they are arguing about this following ruling. itmar mishemed Rabbi Ameh Rabbi Aseh. Yesh sham pas arba'a matir bepirsa ad aser. I'm going to show you the case. It's much easier to visualize it than to describe it. So here you have a mavoi, right? And you have all the shared courtyards that are opening up to it. This is the Shut Harabim, the main thoroughfare here. So I have here an opening, and I have the korah, right? That permits me. Now, one day, I don't know what happened. The horse and buggy crashed into the wall here and broke it. So now I have a breach in the wall that's big, that's 10 tefachim, right? So is this a problem? Well, this opinion of Rabbi Ameh and Rabbi Aseh says, as long as there's a piece of wall here that's 4 tefachim, just that little piece, then it's okay. As long as I have this piece here, then I can tolerate having a big space here up to 10 amot, right? More than that, that's no good. Okay, so what's the point here? You see that those first 4 tefachim, that's what creates the space that allows it to be called a mavoi. Right? Once you have that 4 tefachim, you have a mavoi, and then the rest you can treat normally. But you need that 4 tefachim, but only 4 tefachim. So let's see now what we do with this, right? If there's 4 tefachim, if the Ishma pas arba'a, 4 tefachim, then you can have a breach up to 10. Here's another picture, similar. Okay. If not, if this little piece is even less than 4, then you can only have little small breaches that are less than 3 tefachim. That's a general rule. Less than 3 tefachim is lavud. You know this from a sukkah, right? If sukkah you have just holes in the wall or in the schach. If it's less than 3 tefachim, less than 9 inches, then you consider it like nothing. So that's a rule all the time. However, if it's bigger than 3 tefachim, then it won't be good unless you have this little piece here. So let Rav Yosef itle, let Rabbi Ameh. So now we can establish that, right? It seems according to Rav Yosef, who said that the hole that I have to dig here, it has to be 4 tefachim, just 4 tefachim. That would match up with this ruling of Rabbi Aseh that this wall has to be 4 tefachim. So just like this, beginning of the mavoi, all I need is 4 tefachim. So to hear the beginning of the mavoi, all I need is a proper height of 4 tefachim of 10 tefachim for 4 tefachim in. So that fits with that. However, according to the other opinion of Abaye, who says I need to dig, or this I need to dig 4 amot in, right? But over here, we didn't require 4 amot of wall, right? So and that these should match up. And so, therefore, we can correlate these halachot, seemingly.
Rabbi,
yes.
The 4 amot that Abaye requires, is that like related to the minimum depth of the mavoi?
Yes, right. And that's exactly the discussion we're going to get into now. What is the minimum depth of a mavoi altogether? Precisely. Amalach Abaye, hatam sof mavoi, hacha techilat mavoi. So Abaye says, no, that's different. It's different when you're first creating a mavoi than when you have one in place. See, in this case, I had this wall originally, we used to be there. So, and I put this here, everything was perfectly in place. And so it's kasher. And so then the horse and buggy came and crashed and created a hole. It still retained its status and it's still okay because I made it well. But in this case, I'm making it to begin with, and I just put this beam here, and it's too low, and they never had the proper amount of 4 amot, and so that's why it's more machmir here when I'm making it than when it was already kasher and just a problem that crept up later. Okay, so therefore Abaye says I can reconcile myself with Rabbi Ameh and Rabbi Aseh. Really doesn't have to because they're only Amoraim, but I suppose that's a widespread halacha, so he wants to be able to correlate with it. Okay, so therefore that's to be 4 amot in depth. If not, it's no good. And Abaye says I am going to bring a proof for my opinion that you have to dig 4 amot in. Detanya, en mavoy nitar belechi v'kora ad shehu batim v'chaserot petuchim letocho. We have a general rule. We actually saw this in Masechet Shabbat was quoted, that a mavoy, in order to be allowed to use this kula of a lechi. Lechi is a beam, a vertical beam, or a korah, a horizontal beam. Right. This is much easier to build than a whole doorway or a whole wall. So in order to use this kula, it has to be a mavoy, and a mavoy is defined as something that has 2 courtyards with 2 houses each. Total of 4 houses have to open up to this alleyway. If it's less than that, then it's just one courtyard. It's just a courtyard. You can't call it joining anything. And if a courtyard has only one house, it's not even a courtyard, right? So it has to be, a joint partnership of a joint partnership. So 2 times 2 in order to be called a mavoy. Okay, so now how are you going to have an opening to so many things if you have such a tiny space? If you have only 4 tefachim, right, in its width, how are you going to ever enter into 2 courtyards with 2 houses each? So maybe you'll tell me it's set up. It's really good to have pictures here. I don't know how to explain this otherwise. If you're going to tell me that it opens up like this, right? Perhaps the depth into the mavoy is only 4 tefachim, but the width is very wide. And so here I can have 2 very nice openings, one to one courtyard and one to the other courtyard. And in there's 2 houses each, right? So if you're going to tell me that, that's not going to work for me because Amar Rav Nachman Nekitinan Ezeu mavoy shenitar belechi v'kora kol she'orko yated al rochbo ubatim v'chaserot petuchim letocho. The orko, meaning the depth into it has to be bigger than the opening this way, the width. And so this is the wrong way. This is not the right ratio, and so this will not work. So there you go. Abaye says, I have a proof, right, that wouldn't be called a mavoy. You couldn't possibly construct a mavoy if it would be such a small depth. But Rav Yosef, okay, this is a good proof that Abaye brought, right? He has a braita on his side, and this really does make sense. So how is Rav Yosef going to ever construct a mavoy with only 4 tefachim? He has a good solution. Tefatach le bekeren zavit. It opens on an angle, right? Kind of like in this picture. So you walk in, and then you have an angled opening this way and an angled opening this way. And here, you could see it better. Even here, right here, you have the boxes. This is 4 tefachim, right? So here, 1 tefach is the thickness of the wall. So here you have 9 inches, but it's on an angle, so you get even more than 9 inches. So that's a proper opening. And this is one opening to 1 courtyard with 2 houses and another courtyard with 2 houses. See, I did it. We could. Rav Yosef doesn't have a problem. Good. Amar Abaye, mina amina la. Abaye says, I have yet another proof for my opinion that you need 4 amot into it. Amar Rami bar Hama amar Rav Huna lechi habolet midofno shel mavoy pachot marba amot nidon mishum lechi ve'no sarich lechi acher lahatiro. 4 amot nidon mishum mavoy ve'sarich lechi acher lahatiro. Okay, so we have a side post that comes out of the wall and it's less than 4 amot. That's okay. Let me show you a picture. Here. Okay. So here's a mavoy and here's an opening, and so I have a lechi. A lechi usually it's just like a small post, right? But what if it's bigger? Right? If it's a bigger post, that's still fine. It's still a post. What's the biggest the post can be? Well, once it's 4 amot big, then you're going to have a problem. Yeah. It's like a wall. It doesn't look like a symbolic post. That just looks like a wall. So it can't be that big, right? If it's 4 amot, then you need another pole besides that wall in order to put it there. And so what you see here is that it's going to be that wide and it has to be even deeper, right? Because we said it has to be deeper than it's wide, than it is wide. And so there you go. It's got to be deeper than it's got to be at the depth of 4 amot. How's Rav Yosef going to answer this? Rav Yosef lapokem eturat lechi ad ika 4 amot. Lemeheve mavoy afil barbat tefachim name have mavoy. He says that's not a proof. If you wanted to find what a lechi is, then you're right. If you have to have a big one, then until 4 amot, it's called a lechi. More than 4 amot, it's not going to look like a lechi anymore. But that doesn't mean that I have to have that much space. If you just wanted to find what the mavoy is, 4 tefachim is enough. And it could be even smaller, right? So you're just talking about the definition of a lechi, but that doesn't have to correlate with the definition of a mavoy. Okay, so that concludes the second topic. And now we're going to go and zero in on the third topic of this large lechi. And what do we do with it? Gufa. So now we're going to re-quote what we just cited. Amar Rameh Bar Hama Amar Rav Huna lechi habolet midofno shel mavoy. Right. So again, this supposed to be just a column that comes out of the wall. Pachot me 4 amot nidon mishum lechi. If it's less than 4 amot, then it's a pole, it's a side post. That's fine. And sarich lechi achel latiro, you don't need another one. 4 amot. However, if that lechi is more than 4 amot or more, nidon mishum mavoy. That's just part of the alleyway, and it's not a sign anymore. Sarich lechi achel latiro, I need another one. Okay, that's all the statement of Rami Bar Hama. Now we want to analyze this. Oto lechi hechan ma'amido. Where are we going to put that other post? Right. You see the question, because if you put it right next to the other one, right, if you put it right here, then it looks like just a longer wall. So how did you help? How could you do this? If you just put it next to the wall, it's just like you're extending the wall bigger, but it's not going to look like a side post. One answer is you put it on the other side, kind of like here, right? So you have this thing that you meant to be a lechi, but ended up being very long. So you put a smaller post on the other side, and then that will be noticeable. The second opinion is you make it on this side, but you make it higher, or you make it lower, or you make it thicker, or you make it thinner, right? There's all kinds of ways to differentiate it. And that's what Rav Huna ben Yeshua amar. Afilu tema demokila behadeh, even on the same side, dim mitafeh ba or dim basar ba, bigger or smaller. Okay, good. Amar Rav Huna ben Rav Yehoshua. La Amaran. This is Rav Huna, the son of Rav Yehoshua. We're going to have another sage, just Rav Huna, different person. La Amaran ella b'mavoy shemona. This whole law that you just read up above, right, in the name of Rav Hama, who said Rami Bar Hama, who said, you can't have lechi that's more than 4 or more. That's only if the entire space is 8 or more. But if the entire space of that side is only 7, then you have a wall that's 4 within a space of 7. That's the majority of the space. And so then in that case, we have a different solution. That's that we make it, the whole thing is mutar, because the omed, that which exists, is more than the space, the breach. And anytime you have a wall that's bigger than the majority of the breach, kind of like in this case, in this picture, then you consider as if the whole wall is there, and you don't need anything, because that's like a full 4th wall, right? And if you have, if you had an alleyway with 4 walls on all sides, then it's reshut hayachid, and you don't need to add any sign. And so, right, there's no point even if you have a long wall, if it's a majority of the space, then you don't need anything at all. You don't need to add a post. Okay, so that's a good law. Now, okay, and how does he know this? How does he know this general rule here that we can apply it here? Kal v'chomer mechaser, a chaser. That's the courtyard that just houses in it, right? As opposed to an alleyway. They're very similar, but there's slight differences between them. Ma chaser she'ena nitedet belechi v'korah, nitedet be'omed merubeh laparutz. A courtyard, which is, most of our this neighborhood, Eruvin, we're just, we have courtyards, and so when you want to join courtyards together, you can't use a lechi and korah. You have to have a full doorway, frame, or wall. And so if a chatzer, which is more mahmir, more stringent, because you can't use a lechi and korah, yet you can use this rule of having a majority of wall more than the space, and it's okay, it's considered a wall across the whole space. If that's true for chatzer, and we know it's true for chatzer, then mavoi shenitar belechi bekorah and odin shenitar be'amed merubeh parus, then mavoi, which is more lenient in that you can use just a pole this way or that way. So all the more so, we can also apply the rule of having a majority of the wall there present would be sufficient. Okay, so that seems to be a good kal vachomer. However, the Gemara is going to question it. Wait a second. The courtyard has a different kula, because a courtyard has a breach that's less than 10 amot, right, is still okay. So that's a big amount. Whereas for an alleyway, the maximum it could be is 4 tefachim. And then we're going to see this whole discussion is going to be on the next page, so I won't get it too much now. But the point is, you can make a kal vachomer because in this way a mavoi is more stringent in its requirements, and so you can make a kal vachomer as you did. Well, Kasabat Rav Huna bered Rav Yoshua, that's who said this law that the majority is okay. Mavoi name pirsata b'ayaser. Maybe he thinks that the mavoi also 10 amot of a breach in the side of a mavoi, he thinks that's also 10 amot, and so therefore it's equivalent to a chatzer. Okay, maybe he does. Laman kamrinan l'Rav Huna. Hold on, this whole law, wasn't he just saying this whole law in the opinion of Rav Huna? And Rav Huna is the one that says it's 4 tefachim, not 10 amot. Again, we'll see this in the next page, what Rav Huna thinks. So since he's saying in the name of Rav Huna, his logic doesn't make sense. So we end up saying Rav Huna bered Rav Yoshua tamad nafsheka amar. Rav Huna, the son of Rav Yoshua, was giving his own opinion. He wasn't saying this according to Rav Huna, but rather his own opinion. And his own opinion, they're both chatzer and mavoi, the maximum breach is 10 amot, and so they're equivalent. And so you can make this kal vachomer, and therefore you can use this ruling of having the majority of a wall there if it's 8 or less. Rav Asher has an interesting insight now. Amar afilu tema b'mavoi shemona nameh lo sarich lechi. What if the space here is exactly 8 amot, right? This space is exactly 8 amot, and then I make a lechi / wall that's 4 amot, exactly half of it, right? So now what do you say, right? Is this okay? Or is this not okay? On the one hand, it's too big to be a lechi, because right, it looks like a wall. On the other hand, it doesn't cover the majority of it, because it's only half. So what do we do? So he says it's okay. No matter either way, it's okay. Ma nafshach iomed nafish nati nitar be'amed merubeh parutz. If you consider this to be a majority, if exactly equal. What is exactly equal? Is that a majority or a minority? If it's like a majority, then you have the majority there. And so you can rely on Rav Huna ben Rav Yoshua. If it's considered less than the majority, then it's less than 4 amot. And therefore, you can call it a lechi. Either way, right? One way or the other, it's okay. Lehakel, right? So what are you going to say? It's exactly equal? First of all, is it ever possible to measure exactly, right? Isn't it going to be 1 millimeter this way or that way? So you say it's a safek. It's okay if it is, even if it is a safek. It's safek midrabanan. All these laws are midrabanan, and so we have a general rule, safek drabanan hakel, and therefore we can be lenient and permit it in either direction. Baruch Adonai Le'olam. Amen. Thank you. Thank you for joining.
Thank you very much, man.